Hey, and welcome back to another Darkfall tutorial. In this video we're going to be looking at how to create an outdoor Parisian cafe scene. So in this first part we're going to be concentrating on a bit of modelling, also setting the scene. We can also set up some placeholder materials so when we jump into part 2 we can complete the materials. And then part 3 we can then finish it off with a bit of compositing. Okay, so let's open up a new scene in Blender and we can delete the default cube and also the lamp. Also make sure you're in Cycles Render if you're not already in that, if you're not already using Cycles. Let's go over to here to the world panel and we want to change this. Normally the colour here is grey, so we just want to increase this to white. We can come back later on and add in an environment texture. But for now the white should be fine. Okay, so what we're going to do is Shift A, add a plane. This is going to act as a temporary table so we can get an idea of how the scene looks. So let's align the camera by pressing numpad 1, then Control Alt numpad 0. If we select the camera and then press G, we can move this around a little bit. I also want to press R, then X, and we can rotate it on the X axis to point it down a little bit. I'm going to press G and Z, bring it up. So just align the camera like so. Okay, so I want to add a few objects here to get an idea of what the scene will look like. Also make sure you save by pressing Control S. We don't want to start this all over again. So Shift A, add in a cylinder, and this is going to act as the wine bottle. So I've got an idea of what the objects I want to have in the scene. I would definitely want to have a wine bottle, maybe a couple of glasses, maybe a little cafe scene at the background. But yeah, I'm going to Shift D and duplicate this. So let's scale this down as well. Just place it there. Okay, so we can move this over a bit. And this is going to be the wine glass. Shift D, just so I can have two of them, see how it looks. Okay, so we're going to be focused on the wine bottle first. So let's just drag this over, scale it down. Let's make sure it's just sitting right on top of the plane. So you want to select everything else. So you want to select all the things that you don't want to see right now. So we're going to select all these except the wine bottle and press H to hide it. So we can just focus on the wine bottle. Press numpad 1 to go in front view, then numpad 5 to go into orthographic view. It'll help us do the modelling now. So we're going to do a bit of rough modelling and then come back and refine it. So if we press Tab to go into edit mode and press Control R, then scroll your middle mouse button up once to add some loop cuts. I'll left click and place them. I'm going to scale this up a little bit on the Z axis only, so S and then Z, and this will act as a label later on for us. So just switch this to face mode. I'm going to select the top face there and go to front view by pressing numpad 1. If we start extruding this by pressing E, and if it's not constrained already like so, if it starts moving like this, you want to press Z to make sure it's constrained. And then scale it in a little bit. And don't worry about how angular it looks right now, we're going to come back later on and refine it. So extrude again, and then S to scale. We can bring this down a bit. What you can do is press N and add in a background image if you want to. I mean, there's so many different shapes of bottles of wine, so I mean it's up to you how you want it to look. For this part here, I'm just press E to extrude and then right click so it stays in place. Then press S to scale, and then click, and E to extrude, and there we go. So yeah, I'm just going to do this by freehand because I've got an idea of how I want it to look. We can also delete the face since we're going to be adding a modifier to give us the thickness. Okay, so now we can just roughly do the bottom part. Select this bottom face here, go into front view again, just move it where you want it to be. I'm just going to press E to extrude, and then scale it down, bring it up a little bit, and then we want to do the inside at the bottom of the bottle here, so E to extrude again. And we can grab this up, E to extrude, S to scale, and then what we can do, bring that up a bit more. Okay, so the rough shape's getting there now, so now let's do a bit of refinement, make it look a little bit smoother. So we'll start with this top bit again. If we tab into edit mode, press Ctrl R to add a loop cut, and then S to scale. I'm just going to start giving these, give it a bit more shape. Also, if you want to select a loop, what you do, if you hold Alt and then right click on one of these loops or one of these edges here, it'll completely select the loop for you, so you can scale this now. And it's so handy to do, especially when you add a loop cut later on and you need to change one of the original loops, so you can just hold Alt, right click, and then grab that loop. So I'm just going to keep doing this now, add a bit more refinement. If you find when you're scaling that it's moving too much, if you hold shift down at the same time, so press scale and then hold shift as you're moving the mouse, it'll slow down the movements for you. It's very handy. So the amount of time and effort you put into this will depend on how good it will look. I mean, I guess you could, I suppose you could put okay, so let's refine this bottom a bit more. It's pretty simple, just press Ctrl R to add a loop cut there, and just scale this up. And also that floor, that bottom bit there looks way too sharp, so we need to just press Ctrl R, add a loop cut here, and then if we just bring it down on the Z, there we go, we've got a flat bottom now. That just smooths it out a bit. Also that circle in the middle, let's just go to face select. We want to delete this face here, so press X and face. Now we want to select this ring of vertices or edges, whichever you want to select. So if we press Alt and right click, we can select these vertices. And what we want to do is E to extrude, and then right click, and then if we hit spacebar and type merge, and we want to merge these at the center. So now they've just merged into one vertex. And then we can just drag this up a little bit and smooth it out. So that's looking better for the bottom now. Let's just do a bit more to the top here, I guess. Okay, so this here, this is way too sharp. If this was the real world and glass, it would cut you to pieces, I guess. So what we need to do is give this a bevel. If we select this ring of vertices, if we press Ctrl B, we can give this a bevel and then increase the amount of vertices we give it by scrolling up the middle mouse wheel. And then we just bring the mouse back down and then right click, set it. So the shape of the bottle is coming along, maybe a bit more refinement. If we just press T and then give this smooth shading. There's a bit of trouble with the shading at the top of the bottle, so we can fix that. If we go over here to the modifier panel, we're going to give this now a bit of thickness. So we want to give this a solidify modifier. And if we just look, see what it's doing. We can see already it's given it a bit of thickness. So the more we increase this thickness here, the thicker the glass is going to be. It's pretty hard to see since we've just enabled the shading. So what we can do is just press T to bring up the toolbar. Just set it back to flat shading, so you can see this a little better. So there you go, it's giving us some thickness, which is what we want. If we hit Z on the keyboard, we can go into wireframe view and see how much thickness we're actually getting. How much thickness you give it all depends on what you're actually modelling. If you're trying to be accurate in real world, then I guess you're going to have to know what, the actual thickness of the bottle that you're trying to model. But for me, I'm just going to use something simple like that. So a value of 0.04 should be fine for me. We just change this back to smooth shading, see how it looks. We could also give this a subdivision surface modifier. But now we see we've got a bit of trouble there at the top of the neck, so let's just select the bottle, tab into edit mode, press Ctrl R, and just drag this up. That looks a lot better. Just make sure you look around it, make sure there's no trouble, no artifacts, no trouble with the shading. So we also need to fix the top of this bottle here, but we need to apply the modifier first, since we can't control the inside faces yet. come over to the modifier tab panel, and what we can do is just hide that for now, and we would just want to apply the solidify modifier. Don't worry about the subsurf, we can leave that on. And what we actually want to do is delete a couple of these faces here. So we press Alt, and if we hold Alt and press and right click on these faces, if we hold Shift and Alt, we can select these as well. I just want to press X to delete the faces, since a bottle doesn't actually look like that. Okay, so we go to Vertices Select and select this inside ring of vertices. So what we're going to do is match this to the top of the bottle, and the way we can do that, we can actually snap it so it's perfectly aligned. So we come down here to this magnetic looking tool, which is the snap tool. We turn this on and then click the button next to it, and we want to change the element, or the snap element, to vertex. So now when we grab this and drag it on the Z, try again. When we grab it on the Z, if we hover over a vertex, it will snap it to that height, which is what we need. So if we can see, we go front view, we see it's aligned to the top. That's perfect. Okay, so let's turn this back off because we don't need it anymore. Since we've already got this ring of vertices selected, if we hold Shift and then Alt and then right click on this ring, we need to select both of them. If we hit spacebar and type bridge, we want to select bridge edge loops. Adds the rest of the faces there for us. Okay, so we also need to press Ctrl R and add a loop cut here. Just drag this up, tighten that ring, so that shading looks a little bit better. And also we want to select this ring of vertices here, bring this up a little bit because it shouldn't be flat. It'll catch the light better. Okay, so we also need to model a cork to go on the top of it. Unless you want your bottle to be already open, then you don't need to do that. What we can do, we tab into edit mode, and we've already got this ring of vertices selected. If we hit spacebar and type snap, we want to snap the cursor to selected. And what this does is it just moves the 3D cursor, the 3D origin point. So anytime we add in something now, it'll go to there. So let's Shift A, add in a cylinder. And the reason we did that is just so we don't have to worry about dragging, positioning the cork in place. We actually just scale it down and it'll fit perfect. Let's go to front view, press Z to go into wireframe so we can see, make sure it's actually inside the bottle. It's not clipping the material, so it's not clipping the objects. Scale this on the Z, bring it up a little bit. So we can start modelling the cork now. Let's just hide this bottle here first. Tab into edit mode. It's pretty simple. I mean, there's a few different shapes of corks, depends on what you want to model. I'm just going to do a very simple basic one. I'm just going to loop cut here, and then just going to scale this face up a little bit. And then if we go to edge select this edge, let's get down. Okay, so I also want to bevel this edge here. So we press Ctrl B and we can bevel it. In fact, actually Ctrl Z, I want to bevel both of these. Might as well do both at the same time. Let's go to face select this, Shift, left click. Okay, and then press Ctrl B when you've selected both of them. So we scroll up the middle mouse wheel, it gives us more faces, it gives us more of a rounder look. Let's smooth this, see how it looks. It's not too bad. Okay, so what we want to do now is with face select mode, we want to select this top face here. And we also want to select this bottom face. And we want to select the back line as well. And this is to add a seam, so when we unwrap the object, it'll fit, the textures will fit perfect. So if we press Control numpad 1, we'll be facing the back. Select this edge here. Okay, you want to make sure you select all of the whole edge from circle to circle. Make sure you don't miss anything out. And then when you're ready, you press Ctrl E and we can mark the seam. Press Alt H, bring everything back, and also Ctrl S, make sure you save this. Okay, so the basic shape of the bottle is now done. We also want to add in, let's just drag this up a little bit. I can scale it if you want. Now we also want to add a label to this bottle, and that's where we jump into edit mode, and if we select face select and then hold Alt and right click, we can select this row of faces. I'm going to press Shift D. Okay, so now I'm going to press Shift D and we want to make a copy of this. So we right click to leave it where it is, and we don't want to move it around, we just want to leave it exactly where it is for now. We also want to press P and we want to separate this by selection. So now when we jump out of edit mode, we'll now have two objects. We'll have the bottle and also the copy of it, which is now a label. So what we need to do is we need to scale it up, because we can see that both objects are clipping. Now if we look down here, when we press S, it'll give us a value of how much we're going to be scaling by. We want to just bring this up to a very small amount, and you can actually type this if you want. We want to press S 1.0009. So that should be enough, so it's not clipping with the object. So we press Control Numpad 1 again, and we just jump into edit mode. We also want to add a seam for this. Since there's no top or bottom, we just need to mark the back. So select the back edge, press Control E, mark as seam. And I also want to maybe add a label at the top here as well. Sometimes they have one at the top. So if you also want to add a label at the top, just again do the same thing we did as with the bottom label. So select this. Again, we also want to scale this up. You probably want to set the origin first, but it should be fine. It's not a big deal. Just scale this up a little bit. Okay, so let's add some placeholder materials. These are just going to be, so it gives these materials are just going to be basic, just gives us an idea of how it will look later on. So add this for the label. We also want to scale this back up again. Probably didn't scale this up enough. There we go, that should be fine. So yeah, let's give a placeholder material for the glass bottle. Press new, add a new material. We want to change this to glass. Let's change this colour as well, because I want this to be like a green bottle. It's also too bright, so let's just turn this down a bit. You're free to choose what kind of colours you want or what kind of bottle you want to create. This is just kind of the bottle I've got in mind. And we'll come back later on and change the settings for the roughness and the IOR in the next part. So let's change this to label, make it a single user. Let's also add a texture for the cork. Or should I say a material for the cork. So now all these have got different textures. If we come down here to the viewport color, we can change the viewport colors so it can help us see the different objects. So like right now you can't see the difference between them until we change the colors on the materials. This is only going to affect what you see in the viewport, so don't worry about this as a final render. It's just to give you an idea how it looks. Just want to change this to green. Okay. Okay, so let's just give this a render and see what else we need to add to the bottle. Right, okay, already we can see we've got the thickness we need. We also need to add the wine in the middle, that's a big thing. And the textures will come in the next part, so yeah, we don't need to worry about that. So yeah, we just need to add the wine for the middle inside the bottle. So let's hide everything that we don't need to worry about. So let's select everything else and hide it. So we only want to work with the bottle for now. And what we can do, we can use the bottle to create the wine inside. So if we just jump into, tab into edit mode, and anything we select, any face or vertice we select, if we press H, it will hide it. So if we select all this and press H, it will hide it all. So what we want to do is actually select the outer layer of the bottle first and hide that. So in vertice select mode, I'm going to select this bottom vertex here. If I press Control numpad plus and keep pressing it as many times as I want, it will increase the selection. So I just want to keep pressing it to say 30 odd times. Just to keep increasing this until we've got the top covered, and then press H to hide. Because what we're going to do is use this inside bottle here. Just press Control R, add a couple of loop cuts, and press S to scale. Just so we fix that issue there. And also we can hide this top ring if you want to. We don't need it. Okay, so this is still the inside of the bottle, which we need for the bottle itself. So what we need to do is, like before, we need to press Shift D and duplicate it. So then press P to separate it from the object. Separate by selection. Okay, so now when we jump out of edit mode, we've actually got two objects. If we press G for now, so we can see what we've selected, we've actually got this is going to be the wine. So let's save that and then hide this bottle by pressing H. Okay, so this needs a little bit of work. If we tab into edit mode, so make sure you select the bottle and tab into edit mode, we can see the faces are the wrong way around. So if we hit spacebar and type flip, where we just want to flip the normals, so now the shading looks a lot better. And also, I want to take some wine out of this bottle because I don't want it to be full. I want it to be 2 glasses of wine full of it, so it should be empty at least down to say halfway, or at least up here. So I'm going to tab back into edit mode, and I'm going to select some faces like so. So about this much should be fine. So what I'm going to do is select, then select inverse. So I can just delete all these now that I don't need. Okay, so we need to make sure this texture is using a different material as well. So if we hit the number 2, change this and call it wine fluid or liquid, whatever you want. Change this colour to red, and again we'll be changing the roughness and the IOR values later on. So let's just jump back into edit mode. Select this ring here, press E to extrude, and make sure it's not going to move around like this. We only need to, if we press Z to constrain it on the Z axis. We just want to move it up a very small amount and then scale it a very small amount. Then press E to extrude and then S to scale. In fact, what we can do with them selected, if we hit spacebar and type merge, we can merge. Okay, so once we've merged them, you can put a bit more detail into it, maybe make a few ripples if you want to. But I want this to be looking as if it's been sat there for a while, it's just very still. Yeah, so that looks fine for now. Make sure you Shift S and save that. Okay, let's give this a quick render, see how it looks now. Make sure we can see the inside. Yeah, we can see that there's some wine in there. Looks okay for now. See the wine, we've got the wine bottle, the wine inside it, the label, the cork. So that's modelling is done for that for now. Let's just scale these down a bit. Let's just move these over here a little bit. Maybe scale it down. Make sure it's sitting on top of the table, like so. Okay, we can also position the camera, just rotate it on the X a little bit, bring it down. I want to make a tablecloth later on, so yeah, I want to see the bottom of I want to see it hanging over the table, so lowering the camera will help do that. I also want to scale this down, this is far too big. Yeah, table should look a little bit like that. Okay, so we want to select everything else except this other cylinder here, and we want to hide it. So make sure you deselect the cylinder and then hide everything else by pressing H, so we can focus on this one. So we go to front view. Again, if you want, you can press N and go to background images and add in a background image of say a wine glass, because again there's loads of different types. So if you want to use a reference image and you can model it against that, that's fine. But I like to do it freehand, make it a little bit unique, I guess. Okay, so the first thing we can do is press S to scale this down, and this can be the base of the glass. So I'm just going to scale it down a bit more. And also we're just going to press Alt H to bring everything back, and then just drag this down on top of the plane so it sits on top. That looks fine, so let's select everything else again. Just hide it. Okay, so like the bottle, we're just going to make some simple extrusions and then come back and do a bit of refinement. So I'm just going to extrude this up, then scale it in, like so. Go to front view might help. Extrude and scale. Extrude and scale, and that's all it is. Just keep extruding and scale for now. And again, it probably would help if you've got a background image if you're not comfortable modeling. At first I used a lot of background images for everything, but then after a while you get an idea of how things should look. And again, if you're working for a client, then you probably will need to be more accurate. When you're working for yourself or for a project that you're working on, then you don't have to be as accurate. Just keep pressing Ctrl R, adding a loop cut, scaling, position it around, make sure I'm happy with everything. Scale it. So as with every kind of modelling, I guess it takes time. It's down to your patience and how much effort you want to put into it. So there is no simple way to get something done. It's all down to your hard work. So when you do create something and it does look amazing, it's always great to share that. Just keep scaling it. And also when I'm scaling, I'm holding shift so it moves ever so slightly, because if you don't hold shift, it'll move in massive amounts, which will just annoy you. So yeah, hooks. And again, we want to select this ring, so you just hold Alt and right click. That's probably one of the most useful things for me anyway, as when I'm modeling, is the okay, so keep adding some curves in. And you notice since I had a loop cut there, this loop here needs to be scaled up a bit. So just keeping in mind, every time you add a new loop cut, you probably will need to scale something else depending on how many loop cuts you've got in it. So so it's not looking too bad, it's getting there. What we can do is select all this and just drag it down a little bit first. Then we press Control and minus, numpad minus, we can deselect a few things. Let's just deselect about halfway. And if we press O to bring up proportional editing and drag this down, it'll sort of squish it a little bit for us. Give me a bit better shape. The bottom where it meets the stem of the glass looks terrible, so I'll change that later on. I also want to just move this a little bit more. If you scroll the middle mouse wheel up and down, it'll give you more control on the faces next to it. So yeah, let's just fix this. Let's select this ring and bring it down. And select this ring and bring it down. That's a bit better. And this one here, let's scale it in. I think there's too many here, so if we select this one and press X, instead of deleting it, we can dissolve it. So we want to dissolve the edges. So it just got rid of that loop for us. Just drag this down, scale it. And definitely want to select this one here and scale it. So very small movements will give you better results. And later on we're also going to add a subsurf to it, so we'll get more, so it'll be even rounder, so you don't need to worry about that. Just add a few more here. And again, you can take as much time as you want. Select this face and scale it. And instead of deleting this face and adding a modifier, what we actually do is we need to model the inside of the glass. If we give a modifier, if we applied the same modifier we did to the bottle to this one, the stem of the glass would look terrible, unless that's the kind of the effect you're going for. We don't want a hollow stem. So we just press 1 to go in, numpad 1 to go in front view, Z to go in wireframe view should I say. And we're just going to extrude this now and keep going on the inside of the glass. And we want to try and keep the same level of thickness all around. So if we zoom in, you can see this level of thickness here between the outside and the inside of the glass. We want to try and keep that. We don't need to add as many loops as we did before, so we can just drag it down to here, scale it a little bit. Again, E to extrude, and then S to scale. E to extrude, S to scale. Now we're coming towards the bottom of the glass, so we want to start just rounding it off. So we just bring that back up and then scale back out, and then E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, S to scale. Okay, so what we can do now is we need to merge it like we did before. So let's first delete the face, X to delete and then face. We need to select this ring of vertices here. It might be a bit tricky since the view that we're looking at. And then we want to do is E to extrude, and then hit spacebar, type merge. We want to merge at center. So we look now, we can see that it's no longer a ring. Select that vertex and just drag it down. Okay, so now we can do a bit more refinement on the bottom. First thing we need to do is scale this, so extrude, then scale, extrude, and then scale again, and now we can drag this up a little bit, extrude and scale, and bring it up. Like before, we can also delete this face, X to delete the face, select this ring of vertices, we type merge, hit spacebar and then type merge. We want to merge at center, and there you go. Let's just tidy this part of the glass up here now because it's a bit too blocky. I also want to bevel this edge here, this bottom bit, so we just press Ctrl B to bevel this edge. I also want to select this ring of this ring here and just drag this up a little bit, like so. I also probably want to bevel this edge here as well, so Alt, right click, and then Ctrl B. Yeah, it should look fine. Just select this ring. I also want to scale this in a bit. And again, it's all about scaling, Control R's, extrusions. It just takes a bit of time really. It's not too difficult. Just put on a bit of music maybe and try and get it done, or just forget about it and you eventually get there. Okay, I also want to bring this face here, so I'm trying to select this ring of faces, but for some reason I can't select it, so let's zoom in a little bit better. Yeah, I want to select this ring of faces here, and go to front view, hit O to enable proportional editing. I can drag this and move it all around. looks a little bit better. Okay, so hit T to bring up the toolbar, hit smooth, see how it looks. So right away I can see there's some trouble with the shading at the rim of the glass there. So what we can do is tab into edit mode, press Ctrl R, drag this all the way up, and do the same thing for the inside, like so. And then tab out of edit mode, we can see that's a lot better. Okay, so we also want to add a modifier. We can give this a subdivision smooth. It looks even better than it did before. Increase the view to 2 if you want to. I'll leave it at 1, it's up to you. Okay, so actually I shouldn't have deleted that, let's just put that back. So like the the bottle of wine, we also need to put wine inside the glass, which is even easier for this one. If we select the vertex select mode, select that vertex and then hit Control numpad plus to about halfway. Again, depends on how much wine you want inside the glass. So Shift D and then P to separate. We want to separate by selection. Now we notice the origin point's down at the base of the glass. We actually want to set the origin, so hit spacebar and type set. We want to hit set origin to geometry. Okay, so we've had the glass for now. We also want to tab into edit mode on this wine selected. Select everything, hit spacebar and type flip, because we also need to flip the normals for this one too, just like we did with the inside of the bottle. And let's also put a top on this by front view, E to extrude on the Z, just a little bit, and S to scale. Then we're going to press E to extrude, and then we also want to merge them, so you can scale it if you want to, but we can just press spacebar and then type merge at center. Again, if you want to put a bit more detail into the glass, maybe some ripples, but I think that looks fine when it's still. Let's add the texture for the wine. Let's also set a new material for the glass, so just call this glass or wine glass and change this surface to a glass. Again, we'll come back and change these later on, but we want to increase that to all the way white. So let's give this a quick render to see how it looks. Straight away I can see there's a big problem there with the wine. And see this, it looks kind of streaky, and that's because the textures or the objects are clipping. So what we need to do is just scale that down and it'll fix it right up. So let's select the wine, and again if you look down to the bottom left you'll see the values come up here when we hit S, and we just want to scale it down a little bit. Doesn't have to be too much, just enough. And we also need to do it for the inside of the bottle, even though we couldn't see it clearly, it's doing the same thing. So I'll just press H to hide the bottle, select the wine, and S to scale. I just want to drag it down a little bit, but enough so it's not clipping the bottle. Okay, so we can see that the wine glass is now working, so I'm guessing the bottle is doing the same thing since we scaled it down. Just going to scale it down a little bit more just in case. Okay, Alt H, bring everything back. Okay, so let's give that a render again, make sure that's working now. Yeah, it looks fine. So looking at it, it doesn't seem to have any problems now with any clipping. So what we're going to do is just select both of these, the wine and the glass. Scale this up a little bit. So I want these to kind of be big wine glasses. Make sure it's sat on top of the plane. And the same thing for the bottle and everything else. So what we need to do is select the bottle. Make sure you select the labels, the inside, the cork. Make sure you select everything that's related to the bottle. So we're just going to drag this up on the Z. What you could do is add an empty and parent these to the empty if you want to. But once I've moved this once, I shouldn't need to move it again. So I don't need to do that. Okay, so let's select the wine and the glass. Shift D to duplicate it, and then we can G, and then Shift Z. It'll constrain it so it won't go up or down, but it will move left or right, backwards and forwards. So with this plane selected, let's make sure we snap the cursor to selected. So hit spacebar, snap cursor to selected, delete the plane, and I want to add in a circle because it's going to be a rounded table. In fact, we're not even going to see the table, we're just going to see the tablecloth. So this table here is just going to be used for the cloth simulator. So let's just scale this up to be around, I don't know, something like this. And if we tab into edit mode and select vertices select and extrude this down, we can see that it's very well, there's not many vertices at all, so what we need to do is add some more vertices. So if we hit W and then subdivide, maybe one more time. Okay, so there's a lot more vertices, but if we still see that it's very sharp, so in fact let's just press Ctrl Z, go back to the original, and if we give this a modifier, we give this a subsurf, increase the view to 2 and then hit apply. Now we've got a perfect circle with a lot more vertices. So if we select them and hit E to extrude it on the Z, and if we hold Alt and then right click on these and then press F to add a face. Now since we've already got this selected, we can just press Ctrl B, and if we hold Shift and move the mouse, we can increase the level, and then scroll up on your middle mouse wheel to increase the bevel. And I want this to be quite rounded. You won't see the bottom part, so you don't really need to bevel it. Also make sure you hit smooth. We won't see this object, but we will see the effect of it onto the cloth simulator, so make sure it's nice and smooth. Shift A, and we want to add in a circle again. And what we can do is we press T and come to the vertices here. We can increase this to 64, which we probably should have done before for the first circle, but there we go. Anyway, let's scale this up. Scale this so it's bigger than the table. We hit E tab to go into edit mode, F to add a face with everything selected. We can drag this up. Just drag this up so it's a little bit higher than the table, so that it can fall down and give a movement. So with the table selected, if you drag the panel out here, so we can select the physics tab. We want to add a collision to this table, and as standard that should work fine, so we don't need to worry about that. Now with the plane selected, or the circle rather, we want to again go to the physics tab, and we just want to add a cloth. We press Alt A so we can see how it looks, and it looks terrible because we need to add some faces to the middle. So what we can do is just scale this down to about there, and then what we want to do is press E to extrude, and then S to scale. We can scale this out, but what it's done, it's added an extra face which we don't need. So let's just drag this down on the Z for a minute, and we can see there's the face now that we don't need since we've already got it selected. If we hit face select, press X and then delete the face, and then we can select this edge here again and bring this back up. So it doesn't need to be perfectly level since it's going to fall down and have simulation anyway, so that's fine. If we press Alt A now, we still don't have any faces in the middle. Let's tab into edit mode, press Ctrl R, and on this outer ring we want to increase the amount of faces. How many faces you put on it is up to you. You don't need to go crazy with it because we're going to add a subsurf modifier. But if we tab out of edit mode, go back to the first frame and press Alt A, we can see how it looks. It's not looking too bad. Again, it's very blocky, and so right now it does look a lot blocky, but when we put a modifier on it, it will look fine. So again, you don't need to go crazy with the amount of loop cuts you put in, because the modifier will help sell the scene. So we're just going to put this amount in, that should be fine. Make sure you tab out of edit mode and press Alt A. Okay, so we also want to go to the modifier tab and let's add a subdivision surface. We also want to press T and we want to smooth this out. It's looking much better. We can also increase the view. So there we go, we don't need a crazy amount of faces to begin with. I think that looks fine for us. Okay, so I'm going to just change it back to flat for now in case it starts slowing down the viewport. The render will be fine, this is just for the viewport. I also want to add in a background. Let's just give this a placeholder material for now. And in part 2 we'll come back and fix all the materials for everything. Just give this a colour. Yeah, so I should make sure you save it as well. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a plane and start roughly modelling out the background. Just scale this up. So I'll probably do this next part, speed this up. So yeah, if you want, you can watch me roughly model out a background, or if you want, you can just jump straight over to part 2.